My name is Steve. Started riding mountain bikes in 1991. Started the Dirt Dart mobile bike service in 1994 after going to the races and working on a bunch of bikes for myself and also to help pay for my racing. So this bike today is a 1967 Schwinn Fastback. It's kind of rare and kind of different because it's called the Rams Horn. I've worked on these Fastbacks before, but never with the Rams Horn. I saw one as a kid when I was little. I got to ride one of these for a second because it was really cool looking, and then I have one here today. Local guy, he's a farmer, and he bought this bike new in 1967 with money that he earned mowing lawns. So today our project is to start out with this, go from a piece of yard art to a daily driver. We're not going to repaint, we're going to clean, we're going to replace parts. Some of the most difficult parts are going to be hard to find is another Schwinn saddle like this. It may not have the Schwinn tag on it, but we want to try to find something that's that white sparkle. We're also going to replace these tires. This is an old slick. It's all cracked up. It's a 20 by 1 3/8. It is specific to Schwinn as far as the size goes. He would like to have a set of these, a slick and a smooth tire as a set, but he wants to ride it every day. So we're gonna put two of these slick tires on here, one on the back, one on the front, because this is a little squirrely. If you go up a curb on this, and it'll kind of track like a car does with flat tires in a grooved road, so it'll kind of want to steer it kind of funny. So these do ride a little funny. They're mostly made for looks. This 67 Fastback is after the Mustang Fastback and some of the hot rods back in the days in the 60s and 70s. These Schwinns were mocked after hot rods. So this chain ring right here on the front is called the mag, and it says right there mag, and this is designed after kind of a mag wheel. And so a dad could have a 67 Mustang Fastback, and the kid could have a bicycle too that would be like dad's car. So some of the other bikes were called crates, and they had the smaller wheel on front with a spring or fork, and they're more desirable, they're more money. But these nevertheless were more mainstream because they were more affordable. People back then, they would spend a lot of money on a bike like this, and Schwinn was the bike to have. Today we're going to tear this down carefully. We're going to clean all the parts up. We're going to polish what we can. We're going to replace the spokes for sure because the wheel is bent. We're going to have a wheel builder rebuild that. I'm going to clean up all this old crusty stuff off of here. You're going to see that right now that does not come off very easy. Okay, so I'm going to clean all that off, and underneath there it'll say Schwinn approved. We're going to repack the bearings. We're going to take all this stuff apart, and this thing's going to look like a good daily driver when we're all done. So things I'm noticing right now is that this cable's kind of short. Okay, when you turn it sideways like this, it pulls. I'm going to make sure that I note and make that cable a little bit longer. I do have white housing. I'm going to reenact all that. This cable right here I can replace too on this Schwinn, so I'm going to replace that as well. I'm going to clean this shifter up. The little 5 on top here, I don't know if I can do anything with that or not, but I think that's going to be just fine the way it is. So I'm going to start taking this thing apart. Some of these parts on this bike are chrome plated. Some are cadmium plated. And you know the difference is because of the color. This is kind of like a more of a silver painted looking. This is cadmium plated. This seat post right here, that's chrome, and it'll shine up nice. But cadmium plated, we can't do much but clean it up a little bit. It won't really ever shine good, but we'll clean it up nice. And then other parts are aluminum. This bike hasn't been taken apart probably ever. Just been ridden and then been put away in the barn for probably the last 30 years. Now if you look at this chain guard right here, if we clean that up, a little bit of alcohol just to take a peek at what we got here. And look at that. That looks like a mirror now. And so we just got to clean that up, but we got to be careful not to disturb this. This is all a decal. So this is a decal, it's not a sticker. So it's very thin and it gets scratched. We want to preserve all that. So when we're cleaning this and polishing this, we don't want to disrupt this patina. We want to preserve that. We do have a little dent right here in this chain guard. We'll straighten that out. This part right here is also cadmium plated. So we're not going to do any plating on it, we're just going to clean it up. So there you go. So we're going to set this into our parts box and move to the next piece. Okay, so we got that guy off. Let's go ahead and take our brake pads off. One of the harder parts is going to be maybe finding some of these salmon colored brake pads. Wyman was a brand that made these. But we're gonna have to replace these because these are hard and crusty. Brake pads are like pencil erasers, they dry out over time. But we're gonna have to find some new red brake pads because that's what the customer requested. And you can see right here it says Wyman. That was a brake manufacturer. We normally have shifters up here on the brake levers and handlebars, but this one's right in the middle. So I'm gonna shift this into the right gear. Look at that, that thing's still moving. After all these years, it's still shifting. And of course the kickstand's clicking. We'll make that out of the way. There we go. Okay, so let's see how that thing works. Oh, we got problems. Yep, wheel's falling off. Okay, so let's get that wheel out of the way. Okay, derailleur fell off with the wheel. Okay, looks like we're missing some hardware right here. This typically stays on the frame. We got it all twisted up. There we go. So this derailleur usually hangs right here. There's a little bolt, a little tab on the back of that derailleur that holds that in place. So that's fallen off. And it looks like we got some red paint underneath here. So what they did is they painted the base color red, and then they did the black over the top of the red. So I've seen that in a few other spots too. So let's take a look at this wheel. Oh, bearings are turning. Oh, looks like somebody's riding along and there's some string in the cassette back here in the freewheel. We'll have to get all that cleaned out too. That is going to shine up and look really good. I'm excited about that. Okay, yep, looks like one of these nuts is loose right here, so we're going to have to pull this freewheel off of here. And we'll start doing this afterwards. For now, we're just going to hang this, set this right here, and we're going to keep taking this apart. So I want to take my chain off. So, chain breaker. Let's pop this chain off here. Get this out of the way. Just like that. Okay. So we're going to clean this chain up and we're going to save it. We want to save as much as we can on this bike. Keep it mostly original. If it's not worn out, we're going to keep it. I'm going to take the front wheel off.
It's like a baby drink.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers.
So Schwinn didn't make all their parts, okay? For instance, this hub says it's made in France. And you know it's on a Schwinn when it says Schwinn approved. you look right there, you can see France on that hub. And right above it, if we clean it off, it says Schwinn. Right there. And sometimes there's a date stamped on there too. Ooh, that sounds good. Got some squeaky going on. Those are some seriously dry bearings. Well, let's pull this crank out of here. First, we want to remove the pedals because we'll have the leverage for that. Let's take a pedal wrench. Big Mamba. Let's take these off. And these are reverse thread on the left side. Okay. On these pedals, they're pretty dry too. You hear that? So there's loose balls in here, and we don't want to take this apart, but we do want to prepare this. So what we do is we take these, we take some Fillwood Tenacious oil, okay, super thick oil, but it's bicycle oil, and we're gonna just let it run inside the little cracks in here. We're gonna let that sit for a while. We'll work that in there. We got to get past the shaft from these bearings down to these bearings. So we're gonna let it sit here like this for a day or two. I'm just gonna let that oil kind of seep into those bearings. It's already getting happier already. So yeah. So now let's pull this crankset off. So on the non-drive side, there's a big nut on there, about a 30 or 32 millimeter flat wrench. So take this guy, and it's backwards threads, reverse threads on there. So when you pedal, it doesn't get loose, it gets tighter. So pull that guy off, set him over here. Over a pedal wrench. There's a washer right here, and it's keyed. If you've not taken one of these off before, there's a little key right there, and there's a slot right there on the cranks. And this separates the two. This inner washer is actually a bolt, but it looks like a washer, but it's threaded. And then there's this flat washer, and then there's the lock nut on the outside. And that's how you adjust the bearing preload. So then we take this, take our screwdriver, unscrew this. Okay, this is the bearing race. Don't think this has ever been taken off before, people. Inside here, you're going to see the bearings, and from the factory they don't put a lot of grease on these, and so they're not super coated. That grease is turned to tarnish. The grease is very hard and crusty. As you can tell, it's like flaking off. So we're going to clean all this off, clean it up. This doesn't look like it's been serviced since it's from the factory. That looks like some old factory grease right there from '67. And the bearing race goes on like this. And it looks like the track on the bearing race is still in good shape, so we won't have to replace that. There's no cracks, there's no pitting or anything like that. So that's going to be savable. Also too, a lot of times it'll say Schwinn on the outside, but we won't see that until we clean it off. So that's called the bottom bracket. So now we're going to pull the bearings out. On the other side, on the drive side, pull them off like this. And they're super dry too, look at that. So all that, we're going to clean all that up, and it looks like SA66 right there. So that means that potentially this is, well, we know it's a 1967, but they might have made this crankset back in '66. We're going to pop those cups out, but we're going to clean the bike up before we do that. And let's start taking our cables, our brake cables off, and pull our handlebars off and our headset apart. So they come with little clips. I've already taken pictures of this stuff to see where it's left off at. We will have to find some of this silver tape again. I don't know if they make it, if it's a repop, or if we can find the original new old stock. We'll see. But in the meantime, we got to get these out of here. So let's disconnect this cable right here, just like that. And this guy pops off like this. Okay. Now I got to get this brake lever off of here, and I got to pull this off. I'm going to wait. I'm going to go ahead and pull this out. That. And like that. Now the cables are disconnected. Now I'm going to go ahead and this is called a coil stem, and you'll see when I pop this out that there's two wedge pieces that get tightened down and they secure the stem to the headset. Okay, so now we've got to pop this loose. This has been in there since '67. So we'll take a little hammer. Just gonna pop it like that. Okay. And what that does is that loosens those two pieces up, and voila! Look at all that rust on there. A lot of times this is stuck on there pretty hard. What we want to do when we put this back together is make sure that we put grease on this and grease on this so it doesn't rust. We'll clean all that up, and we'll make sure that the threads are clean when we go back together with that too. Alright, so let's get this brake lever out of here. Let's get this fork out of here. Pop this guy off. Okay. Okay, and the fender slides down, just like that. Looks like we're gonna have to do a little bit of body work right there. Straighten it out. It looks like we've got some damage to the front fork. If you look at it, this leg is bent kind of back a little bit. If you look from the top right here and you look down, you can definitely see something going on with that fork. You remember when I was trying to take that wheel off and I had a hard time getting that wheel out? Well, when that wheel let go, these forks flex a little bit. So we're gonna have to do some body work on that thing and straighten those forks out too. So that'll come a little bit later, but let's get this fork out of here. I want to see the bearings inside this headset. Okay, he's not wanting to come off. We're gonna have to soak him with some multi-purpose. So I just shot some penetrating oil in there. We'll give that a minute. What we could do is we can go ahead and remove these clips and pull this shifter off of here and the rear brakes as well while we're waiting for that to soak a little bit. Let's get this guy out of here. These brakes are going to clean up beautiful. I'll be able to polish them up with a little bit of metal polish. I'm going to clean these. These are really rough right now. It's hardly even going to want to return. And this is the original cable. This is called compression housing. It's got the coils around there for the compressing. And this does not take an end cap like most of our modern bikes do these days. This goes right into that barrel adjuster right there, and that's how you make the brakes tight and loose. So I know some of you out there probably already know what this stuff does, but there's some that don't, and that's why we're here to kind of let everybody kind of see firsthand what I deal with on a daily basis when I'm working on these bikes. And I'm learning something new all day. That's what I love about doing Dirt Dart mobile bike service, is that I learn something new all the time. Oops, we dropped a screw. That happens. And we'll see if we could find that guy. Alright, we found the screw. I'm going to put it back in this clamp. I want to make sure that all the hardware is mated up with the proper pieces. And yeah, it's not always fun when you got a pair of rubber gloves on to try to keep the chemicals off your hands. But we got it. It's got two pieces for it. One's for the shifter cable and one's for the brake cable. And that was located right here. And we took pictures of all that too, so we won't lose location of that. So now let's pull this shifter off. Looks like we got 3 Phillips head screws over here. Oh man, that one's a tough one. Yeah, we didn't get so lucky on the second one. The first one came out pretty easy. And the second one, there's the third one. Number 1 right here is coming out. But number 2, he's gonna fight us a little bit. Yes, success. Whew. Man, you don't want to round the head off. You'd have a really hard time getting that screw out of there. You'd have to drill it and use an easy out, and you don't want to mess with these shifters very much because we can't replace them. Even the stickers right here, we might be able to repop that, but you know, the guy just wants to keep it original. We're just going to make it a daily driver. We're not trying to re-chrome, repaint, re-decal or anything. We just want to, this is a survivor. So we want to keep it as a survivor. Okay, underneath here, original paint right there. That's the original black right there, just shiny as can be. And that is the original color. No sun. So you can see right here, you can see all the little pits and scratches and from his tennis shoes rubbing the top tube as he jumps off the bike. Yeah, those all little scratches right there. Oh, and check this out too while you're here. Little 5-speed. That decal is so cool. We can reproduce these right here, but I don't think we can reproduce that. That is cool. We're going to keep that the same. So we'll go ahead and install these screws back where they need to go. And that's going to clean up nice. Just put a little alcohol on there and just kind of get a little quick preview of how it's going to turn out. Yep, we should be able to get rid of most all these dots. I've got some rust remover that dissolves a lot of that. We'll use triple-aught steel wool, and we'll try to hide all those as much as possible and just make that thing shine like new. So here's the derailleur, the shifter. All this is cleaned up. Look here. These are old steel. There's a plastic coated over the top of steel, and there's ball bearings in here. So we're going to have to take this little screw out and get in there and repack those little bearings and clean all that up and be super careful how that works. And if you look right here, I'm going to actuate that rear derailleur for you. There. Back and forth. That thing is so stiff, and it's all because the cable's corroded inside there. So we'll clean all that out, and that's going to look good. We're going to go ahead and put that in the box for right now. It's funny, some of the hardware is completely standard and some of it's metric. That's a 10 millimeter on that bolt right down there. Yeah, okay, 8 millimeter is going to hold it. And a 10 millimeter right here. There we go. Oh, it looks like, look how shiny that is. The paint's been worn off. Looks like the wheel's been on there crooked and it's rubbed on the inside of the chain stay. We wore the paint off the chain stay. I'm going to take it all the way off because we're going to pull this fender off. Keeping track of where the hardware comes out of and where it goes is really important too. Makes it easy to go back together. Okay, there's our fender. That washer fell off, that came off the brake. Okay, so there's the rear fender. We made a little flare like that at the end, that's pretty cool. That's gonna be nice when it gets all cleaned up. Doesn't look like there's much damage to it, not like the front fender. Got this. This is dimpled right here, and that's for the frame. So it sandwiches between the frame. That frame is round right there. That's round and that's round, and that's how it goes right into the frame. So let's find our nut. And there it says right there, brake made in Switzerland. You got parts from France and Switzerland on this American-made bike because Schwinn didn't always make all their parts. They were Schwinn approved. And sometimes you'll see on some of these bullets it says AS. In fact, I didn't make that up. Look right there. AS. Arnold Schwinn. Isn't that cool? And that's caddy plated as well.
How do you know it wasn't Arnold Schwarzenegger?
I've worked on his bikes before. I know. That is one guy I worked on his bikes in Sun Valley. I've got his seat on my bike down at Lulu's Pizza.
Let's go back for a second to Arnold Schwarzenegger's bike.
Okay.
What kind of bike is Arnold riding?
He rode a fully rigid Paramount bike that Paramount Pictures gave him for doing one of his shows, one of his movies, and it said Paramount right on it. And he had an old Velo seat on there, and that thing was as hard as can be. So I took that off and put a nice WTB saddle on it, more ergonomic. And I don't know if you ever rode it or not, but that seat is actually on the bike in Lulu's Pizza on a 1985 Fisher. Gary Fisher himself actually saw it and said, yes, that's an 85. He said, the seat's not original. I said, I know, that came off Arnold Schwarzenegger's bike in Sun Valley. And, all right, that's going to come later. I'm going to have to let that soak for a while longer. All right, here's that seat. Seat clamp looks good. Like I said, we're going to try to find another seat like this. We'll keep all those old original parts, but we'll find another seat like this on eBay and replace it because it is really weathered. But he wants to be able to ride this daily. Some of these have silver stripes down here. I think this is all just white. It's supposed to be all just white. But yeah, it turned out pretty good. Alright, I think we're ready for the wash bay. Oh, we still got to get that fork off. Alright, let's see what we got to do here. The penetrating oil's been sitting for a while. We got a 31 millimeter. Let's see how that works. Alright, hey, good job. Got that off. Let's see what this looks like. Let's get some gloves on so we don't get grease all over our hands. So you got a nut on the top. Similar to the crankset, you've got a little washer that has a notch in it, and there's a groove in the headset right there. And so we're going to pull that off. That looks pretty good. It says Schwinn right there. They sure like to label all their stuff, just to know you're getting a good genuine bike. Yep, it's pretty crusty, but it's in good shape. It's not divoted, it's not tracked. The headset felt nice and smooth other than just being lack of grease. And then there's the lower race. Oh, and look, see, so what they did do is there's the raw metal, then they did a red base coat, could be a primer, and then they sprayed their black. So this is the original black that this came with. This is what I love to uncover, is to see how that looked from the factory brand new. Doesn't that look beautiful? That thing is super cool. But yeah, alright, here's the top headset. So if you notice, these are one-sided. So on this right here, it'll say Schwinn somewhere too, but see how that grease has really gotten hard and crusty? Look at that. So it just dries out over time. So you guys that have bikes at home that have been sitting around for a long time, imagine what yours look like too. Now we want to be careful not to, these are the same, top or bottom, doesn't matter, but we want to be careful not to knock one of these out because these are cages. The reason why they use cages from the factory is because it's much simpler to toss this into the bike in the bike frame real quick for a worker, instead of putting all the individual balls in there and then putting grease in there. That's the best because then there's no drag. The cage actually causes drag between the two bearings. So if you did a loose ball in here, that would be the ultimate. Loose ball, count how many you need, give yourself a little bit of spacing, and then put some nice waterproof grease in there. That would be the smoothest possible. But on these bikes, not that precise. We'll clean those up and those will work out pretty good. If that ball drops through there, it's a quarter ball. If it drops in there, it's a 3/16 ball. So if we don't know what size that is by looking, we can always put it through this ruler right here. This is also a spoke ruler, and that's measured in millimeters. And then it's just a regular ruler too. So we're going to take this and we're going to take it out to the wash rack and we're going to clean this off. And we're going to wash our wheels too, and then we'll really find out what we got going on. in there. I'm going to put some high concentrate foamer in there. Nebraska, 1967. How cool is that? Bicycle license. We don't have those anymore. I wouldn't mind paying a license if the money went right to the trail.
Sure.
Something good. Alright, well, let's see a transformation. So I always start with the wheels. Degreaser rust dissolver on here. Let that sit for a minute. Special cog brush. There's that string we saw before. Some more string right there. Maybe he's trying to fly a kite and ride the bike at the same time. Clean that up a little bit. Get in there with these guys right here. That. Let's do a little scrubby-dubby here. It's like the derailleur's rubbed all the chrome off right there from being poorly adjusted. Usually when you fall over off to the side, it'll push that derailleur right up into that guard. Look at all the crud coming out of there. So this is kind of a grease dissolver, degreaser. Look how that thing shines. We're still going to polish it. We're going to be able to take some of this other stuff off. We're going to go a little deeper with some triple-aught quad steel wool. See how that's kind of dissolving right there? So that'll be nice and clean. We'll take this off. We'll put it on the bench. We'll polish this up. I'll probably unbuild this wheel. Fast Freddy can build it back up. But that way it gives me an opportunity to really polish that rim up before we go back together. Okay, so here's the first dash of water on here. We're just going to get the loose dirt off first. Then we're going to let the water soak just for a minute, and then I'm going to put on some degreaser spray rust dissolver. Take a soft brush, get this breaking down a little bit. We got layers from years and years of this having some grease on the frame, and then the dirt from the barn sticking to it. My buddy the Dawn dish soap. Just kick that in there like that. Dawn's working. I don't like scrubbing on it very much because I don't want to scratch any of the surface. Not that it hasn't been scratched before. Maybe this bike even has been ghost ridden. Well, let's do a rinse and see what we got left. How's that? Looks like today's a good place to stop. We got all the dirt off. We kind of see what we're working with. We got the wheels over here. Those are all cleaned up. The next step we're going to do later is we're going to take those wheels apart and we're going to polish the rims, and then we'll take them out to Fast Freddy and have him put some new spokes in there and start the build back up again.